Okay, so welcome everybody to the call. Today's topic is limiting beliefs. I'm really excited to share this information with you guys. That's my contact information. My name is Mike Thomas. I am a natural board certified health and wellness coach, and that's my contact information right there. Before we get into the specifics of limiting beliefs, I read a book. Bev Westberg and I have both read this book. This is a great book. It actually just came out a few months ago. And it talks about limiting beliefs that we have in our lives. And the gentleman that wrote it, his name is Colin O'Brady, and phenomenal. He's been in the world record book for so many different things he's done with his body. He went across the Antarctica by himself over the course of 57 days, was competing with somebody else, et cetera. So he's done some pretty incredible things. And the premise of the book, which 200 of the 240 pages of the book really talks about the limiting beliefs that we share in our own heads and that we believe that hold us back, whether they're true or not. And I think probably 80% of the chapters I pretty much have here, these are just, he'll tell a story about where he overcame a specific limiting belief that he had himself. But these are some of the chapter titles. I hate being uncomfortable. A limiting belief is I'm afraid of what people will say. I don't know what to do. I don't have the right friends. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. Those are all things I think I know I've said to myself. I don't have what it takes, right? So the story about this specific book, and Bev and I, like I said, I hope you don't mind, Bev, I'll share. We basically have gone back and forth about this book, and I took it upon myself to actually do the 12-hour walk as well, right? So that's me. My son David took the picture of me being goofy right next to the tree. We always took pictures next to that tree when the kids had their first day of school. That was just kind of how we did it. August the 12th, I left my house at 7 o'clock in the morning and basically finished walking at 7 p.m. So the main reason that just a real quick story about my own excursion of doing the 12-hour walk. Ironically, the main reason I did the 12-hour walk was not because it was a limiting belief that I had. It's because I was looking for the things that were on that screen. So I was looking for joy. I was looking for mental clarity and focus, and I was looking for gratitude. Many of you know my mom is basically dying of colon cancer. She probably has a few months to live. Hopefully she has a few months to live. We had dinner with her tonight. So there's a lot of tremendous sadness and stress in that situation, not knowing when this is going to happen. And that's sometimes keeps me up late at night, or I wake up in the middle of the night, etc. And then we juxtapose that with my beautiful daughter is getting married at the end of October. So there's a lot of wonderful stress, but nonetheless, it's stress as well in that capacity. So ultimately, the challenge that I have is let me go on this walk and just breathe and enjoy nature. I saw the weather forecast for this date, and the high was 77, right? It was beautiful, as you can see in the picture there, and it was just gorgeous. And to be honest with you, I did walk the full 12 hours, but the first 6 hours was exactly what I was hoping for. It was really beautiful. It was very comfortable. I didn't have any pain at all. And I really, to be quite candid with you, was developing a strategy to help myself be the best coach possible. That was actually going on in my head. I did not go with a preset agenda of this is what I want to focus on. These things on your screen just kind of came up in the process of me walking. So the beginning of this walk until my turnaround point, and this is kind of my path here. I live on Lake Springfield in the southern part of the lake there, and then basically made my way around UIS, the Sassa Fields, Toronto Road, took the Iron Bridge Trail north to MacArthur area, went around Shields, basically took Wabash straight west. Many of you know where this is. And then I started going up on the park over there on the left and went straight north. And there that's a screenshot of my 20-mile trip, because it was 20 miles out and it was about 20 miles back. So I left at 7 o'clock and I turned around 6 hours and 2 minutes later. So that's kind of my trip. Now, I don't know that this was on my way back but I kind of looked goofy. So I went ahead and put this picture on here because after I turned around, I started having a little bit of pain on the top of my calf on my right leg, right? Now I'm probably 40,000 steps into this thing, doing just fine. I turn around and I was like, oh, this hurts a little bit. And about a mile later, it hurt a little bit more. And I'm realizing that I have 5.5 hours to go and it's really starting to hurt. So all that joy and all that gratefulness and all that focus that I had in the first half really kind of went out the window. And the second half was really about grinding it out and really working to try to finish this thing. I did not have any doubt at all that I was going to have a problem finishing it, but on the way home, I certainly did. I was in some serious pain, which I did not expect. I guess I should have thought 80,000 steps is going to cause some pain in the body, but I did not think about that. Funny story, when I was about, I don't know, 9 hours into the 12 hours, I called my son David, David and Beverly both offered to pick me up, which again, Beverly, thank you so much. But I called my son David and I said, hey, buddy, if I'm not home by 7 o'clock, I need you to come find me. And he goes, oh, okay, yeah, Dad, that's fine. I said, but to be honest with you, I'm probably going to be okay. And I really don't want to bother my kids. So I said, I tell you what, let me just text you if you need to come pick me up or not. And I kind of gave him the route and how he could find me and where I probably was going to be. And long story short, about half an hour later, I sent to him, I said, yeah, you're going to need to come pick me up at 7 o'clock because after 7 o'clock, I am not going to want to take one more step. Because at that point, I still had about 2 hours to go. I was in extreme pain and I was working towards what I could do to finish this thing. The left-hand side of your screen is, again, the halfway point. I did start with about 1,800 steps as I was doing the dishes that morning before I left at 7 o'clock, folded the clothes, yada, yada, yada. So the turnaround point, I took a picture there about 20 miles. And then for the day, and I can guarantee you I didn't walk very much when I was done at 7 o'clock. I finished at about 39.7 miles. So having said all that, what did I learn? So first of all, I learned that I can do it even when I don't want to. When I was coming back home, I thought about a lot of my clients, a lot of my friends who were going through some physical ailments, my mom, and I thought about, wow, people are really having a tough time. And that's what I'm experiencing right now. And I can guarantee you this last 6 hours, probably the last 4.5 hours were extremely difficult. So finding out where that line is, where I need to wave the white flag. I wasn't there obviously yet. Maybe another 30 minutes, I would have done that. But it really gave me a sense of empathy for others. I feel like I'm strong in empathy, but it still brought me to a place where I can be, hey, people are having this challenge getting out of bed in the morning. Granted, I walked a lot to have that pain, but still it was painful and I wanted to continue to go. I also learned that I would do this differently. There were way too many cars. It probably wasn't as safe as I wanted it to be. I was on Woodside for way too long of a time. Ironically, coming back because there were so many cars and they were kind of close to me, I was so focused on the cars, it helped me get my mind off the pain that I was experiencing. So it was definitely worth it. I'm so glad that I did it. As I mentioned, some of you may have seen the Facebook post. I'm so glad that I did it, but I'm also really glad that it's over and I finished it. And then, a lot of times in the beginning of this book, he talks about your own personal Mount Everest, which could be a plant-based lifestyle. It could be movement. It could be any number of things that we want to do in our lives and accomplish that. I was significantly proud of myself for going through the process of going through that pain and finishing it. And then the last thing I'm going to say about it before I open it up any questions that you guys have before we get into the limiting beliefs presentation is I'm probably going to do it again. I probably this fall will go on a couple of 6-hour walks. Like I can get up at 5 o'clock and I can go to Centennial Park and just walk straight north. I walk about 3 miles an hour. So after 3 hours, I'm walk 9 miles. I can turn around and come back. I honestly had no pain and wouldn't expect to have any pain on that walk. And that could help build it up. And quite frankly, the funnest part of the walk was the first 6 hours. In fact, I was having breakfast the next week with a friend of mine and I was sharing with him my experience. And he says, you know, Mike, it sounds like a 6-hour walk is probably right about right for you. And he sounds like he's got a pretty good plan. So, and then, like I said, next year, maybe in the spring, maybe in the summer, I just might do it again. And we'll just see. And if Grace Ann, who was out of town during the walk, she'll be there for me if I need her or what have you. But that's maybe something I do in the future. I've felt so much joy, so much gratefulness, so much focus on what I want to do over the course of this next year and the planning I did on that walk itself. So, like I said, before we get to the presentation, just wanted to open up. Anybody has any questions or comments for me about the book, the actual walk, and limiting beliefs and the capacity of those chapters?
So in your thinking, the first 6 hours, because you did not have your phone, you were disconnected from everything, right? From people, from phone.
Yeah, I had my phone just to take pictures and to keep track of my steps, but I turned everything off, correct?
But no music, no podcasts, nothing. So
Correct.
it was just your thoughts.
Correct.
And so was that hard for your thoughts to just keep coming? I mean, because I thought it would be easy, except when I think about it, I'm always plugged in. I feel like I can think all day long about books or podcasts or music or whatever, but to actually not be connected to anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I remember you had asked me before I did it, was I planning on, listening to music, or was there a good book I want to listen to? And that's really the point, is to really just kind of be there with your thoughts. I wasn't sure if it was going to be difficult or not. The reality is it was actually quite pleasurable, because it was really just such a beautiful day. So I was distracted with all the beautiful things around me, the flowers and the animals and the people, etc. I did not have any problem at all in the beginning. Like I said, it was very much joyful. So there was no challenge with being distracted with the podcast. And I just very much love to listen to podcasts. You guys know I like to read. I like to go listen to audiobooks, etc. But it wasn't a challenge. And that was not a problem at all. So, yep. So
well, and if anybody else has a question, I want them to pop in. But another question I had, you said when you turned around, the pain happened.
Yeah, I turned around, and within a few minutes, I started feeling a tweak in the top of my right calf, just like I needed to stretch it a little bit. So it was very minor, and it was 5 minutes after I turned around. I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then it got a little more painful, and it got a little more painful, and it was literally like a really painful cramp about an hour later, and I still had 5 to 5.5 hours to go. So that just gradually got worse.
Was it a quick turnaround?
No, I mean, I stood there, I took a few pictures, which I don't have on this presentation. And, I mean, I didn't spin around or anything like that. I just stopped, and there was a marker that I was going to turn around at, which was the 4.5 mile marker of the trail. So basically I walked 9 miles of that trail, 4.5 up and 4.5 back. And that trail at Centennial Park goes up 11 or 12 miles. So I was still very far from the end. So the turnaround, I think it just happened that my body said, okay, at 6 hours, Mike, you're good. Yep. All right, let's move on. So the presentation, like I mentioned before, as it relates to the book itself, is about limiting beliefs, right? And this presentation is for anybody listening online as well as anybody here. But I actually made this presentation selfishly for myself, right? Because I struggle, like we all do. I definitely struggle with this, whether that's my ability to do something physically, whether that's my ability to stick to my task, whether that's my ability coaching, all those things that we all go through. Just so you guys know, complete transparency, I struggle with that as well, right? So what are we trying to accomplish? Ultimately, when I coach somebody, including myself, we want to get to where we're from here, a place of not as much health as we want in our life, to there where, wow, we really have made it, and we've actually been able to see and manifest our vision of health and wellness, right? So ultimately, one of the challenges of getting from here to there is those limiting beliefs. And as many of you know, when I coach, I take some time to talk about, self-care or self-love and how incredibly important that is. Or first, I ask the client, what does this mean to you? And what are your thoughts on this? And many of them feel like, well, that's always an afterthought because I'm taking care of my kids, or I'm taking care of my mom, or I'm taking care of my spouse. And that's typically, not always, but that's one of the reasons why they're in the place that they're at as far as their physical, mental, and emotional health, right? So again, we're looking at big picture, stepping away. What are we trying to accomplish by these calls with Mike, whether that's coaching calls, reading up on books, going to various seminars, webinars, etc. We're trying to get from here to there. And one of the roadblocks that we have, unfortunately, in that process is limiting beliefs, right? So what are limiting beliefs? Limiting beliefs are assumptions or perceptions that we have about ourselves and about the way the world works. This is our belief. These assumptions are self-limiting because in some way they are holding us back from achieving what we are capable of. Okay. So one example is somebody says, I'm just not very good at remembering names. This ties into not only the mantra that we continually tell ourselves, and I know I certainly have said this too many times, I'm just not very good at remembering names, as well as the identity that's attached to that. Actually, I don't remember people's names, and you firmly believe that about yourself, right? So that's a little bit about what they are. So these, I shared with you some of the title chapters in the 12-hour walk. These are actual examples from me and perhaps other people that I know, wink, wink, right? So I am lazy. I don't have willpower. I can't do just about anything. I can do anything for just for a few weeks or months, but then things just kind of go south. I'm addicted to sweets. It's just too hard. It's impossible for me to eat healthy with all this junk that my family has in the house. I just don't get the support I need from my family or my friends. It's selfish me to focus on my self-care. I don't like to exercise. I never have, right? So some of that might ring a bell for you guys. It's certainly a lot of that rings a bell for me. Those are things that we tell ourselves or we identify with as a belief. Now, it could in fact be true, but it certainly qualifies as a limiting belief. So where do they come from? How do we just all of a sudden born, we get to 21 years old, how do we have these different limiting beliefs? And primarily it's three things. It's the experiences that we have, which potentially continue to reinforce that belief. It's the family or the family environment, the family core that we were raised in, and the culture that we experience in the world around us. Those are the things that tell us these are the beliefs that we have. And the ones that are limiting are the ones that we're holding ourselves back from. So my first question to you guys are they true?
Sometimes it's hard to know. I mean, I think they are not true for the most part, but like for me, one of the ones sometimes I think of is the aging piece. And, my body's getting harder to do things and I wonder if it's because I'm aging or if it's because I'm letting myself age improperly.
Okay. So sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. Is that your final
Yeah.
answer?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Okay. So sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, maybe.
I'm not indecisive, am I?
I love it. What does anybody else think? Do you believe that they're true or not?
Well, I think they're true, to a degree. And I think the older you are, the more, stuff you have where, I had a great family. However, when I graduated from college, I was looking for a job actually in the corrections kind of area, juvenile delinquents and that kind of stuff, because that was my major. And
Right.
my father said, "What? Claire, you've got a delightful personality, or he said pleasant, I believe. Why don't you just get a job as a receptionist at a, doctor's office or something? He just couldn't believe that I would want to do anything like
Mhm.
that. And it was just because they were very traditional.
Yeah.
He worked, my mom, did everything.
Right.
And couldn't imagine why his only daughter wanted to do all
Right.
this crazy stuff. So
Right.
it's not from a bad place, but it's just,
course.
basically how you're raised. So
Yeah, definitely has a factor on that, in your belief and your abilities based on that was shared from your dad, et cetera, right? And so I think you're both right. They definitely can affect what you believe. And I guess the short answer for me is they're true. If you believe them, they're true to you. They're your personal truth, right? However, they aren't necessarily like, okay, this is the absolute truth, right? So, I got a slide coming up in a little bit. It talks about, when we believe things, they're true to us and the impact that they can make. So what I wanted to do after defining what limited beliefs are and sharing with how we develop those through our lives with family and culture, etc., I wanted to share with you guys, based on my research and different books and articles, just some tips to overcoming limiting beliefs, right?
Hey, Mike,
Yeah,
before we do that, can we real quickly go through just a quick list of other limiting beliefs?
sure.
I mean, just a quick list. I was just thinking of some, and I'm sure probably everybody else has some others. And
Sure.
too old, what I just said, too young, too fat. The one that I'm broken and will never be the same.
Yeah.
I've been ill and it made me weak and I'll never be the same and so forth, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You'd said not enough time. That's a good one. The other one is I'm not an athlete kind of thing.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Or on the side of food, I think a limiting belief for me sometimes is I can have just one, or it won't hurt if it's in my car or if it's in my house. It's not going to hurt me. I won't touch it. Well, that's a
Gotcha.
joke. Anyway.
That's good. Yeah, and we're going to do an exercise at the end as well, where I think there's 4 or 5 of us on the call. We can actually do this exercise together, where we're going to be able to come up with some thoughts on where we want to be and what those limiting beliefs are.
Well, and one other one that I think sometimes hits me is like when there's too many rules, there's too many criteria, there's too many details. I can't deal with all that.
Gotcha.
So it's too much,
Yeah.
And another one sometimes, I mean, you said fear of failure, and I think that one's definitely true, but I think sometimes fear of success is true.
Yeah, definitely.
Because what do you do with it once you got it? It's like, okay, I don't know,
I'm afraid to fail, or I'm afraid to success. Yeah.
What does that mean in terms of what my life is supposed to be then?
Right.
Are people expect more from me?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of pressure. Exactly. Cool. Anything else?
Not for me. I hope if other people will chime in.
I think for me, it's, the way I was raised and culturally, it was ingrained into me that I shouldn't be rude or disrespectful. And I think that's a limiting thing, because then I hate ordering at restaurants and asking, can I have this and not that? And those kind of things. Or we go somewhere and I'll go ahead. It's all right. I'll have some cheese, because I don't want to be seen as difficult or rude or disrespectful. And that hinders progress.
Yeah, really good point. How you were raised that way, and therefore you feel like you got to fit into this way of not being what could be perceived as being disrespectful or rude, and just kind of going the flow and people pleasing and such.
Right.
Yeah. Powerful. Cool. All right. So here's some tips. I'm just going to highlight a few of these for you guys. So the first one is judgment, right? So no judgment in the realm of what we want to do to make progress in our life. This is one I struggle mightily, not my judgment of you guys, but my judgment of myself, right? So I've honestly, for probably the last 14 or 15 months, I've been working on giving myself grace because I'm not perfect and I'm gonna not always hit the bar and not hit it where I want to be the level I want to be. And that is very difficult, but I continue to just reinforce that and say, this is part of the process. It doesn't mean my standards are low and I'm terrible or what have you. So in a realm of not being judgmental of ourselves, no shame and being in a safe zone, even when you catch yourself judging yourself, right? So it's one thing to say, you know, I'm not going to judge myself. And then when you catch yourself judging yourself, you then judge yourself and you're mad at yourself for that as well. So it's just different perspectives, but just to set the ground rules as it relates to making progress with personal development, goals, etc., we need to understand that without the judgment, we can make tremendous progress. With the judgment, we can be very, very stuck. So behavior change, if you've been trying and failing to reach certain goals that are important to you, and we'll get to some of those specifically in a little bit, it could be well due to self-limiting beliefs. And what's worse, you may not even be aware that you hold these beliefs, let alone how to overcome them, right? So the second piece of this is awareness, right? How incredibly important that little voice in your head is. Huge. This is a book that I think I'm just about 5 pages from the end of this book. But it really talks about the voice in your head, and you can read it right there. It's Taming Your Gremlin by Carson. A surprisingly simple method of getting out of your own way. And I highly recommend the book. It's a very easy read. It's actually a lot of fun to read. It's not a boring book. But just listening to the voice in your head and just, you can see the second bullet there, simply just notice it, right? So much, we're so like this fish that can't see the water. We're so much in our own lives, we don't necessarily see or are aware of some of the thoughts that are going on in our head, right? This is, I would say probably 75% of the battle of getting through the process of limiting beliefs is just noticing them without judgment. So that's, which is, to me personally, is very hard to do. But as I'm reading this book, and I'm having aha moments, I'm like, oh, wow, this is huge. So the third bullet, guys, is we need to work on our self-awareness muscle. So what are y'all's thoughts on, if we want to be more aware of thoughts that are going on our head, how do you think, and I don't have the answer, just so you know, how do you think we can do that? What makes the most sense for you guys to say, I'm going to try to build my sense of self-awareness of this voice sometimes that's negative inside my head? What can we do?
Well, the simply notice is good. That's definitely good. To step back and just let it be and try to not judge it.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes just doing it, whatever it is just trying it and then see why, maybe not why, but feel whatever it is we're feeling, the negative. That's kind of like the embrace the suck thing that you said by Josh Lajani.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe be aware of our environment, like where is this coming from? Sometimes social media,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes culture with TV or whatever.
Yeah.
The cultural norms of, you know, beauty is skinny and
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, but healthy is also going through the fast food restaurants, you know, so it's like you got to be aware of all the things that are coming at you from all directions, I think sometimes.
Yeah. How else can we build our sense of self-awareness? If I want to tell you, if I asked you, okay, so where are you in your own self-awareness? And I'd say 1 out of 10, 1 being you have no clue what your sense of self-awareness is, or 10 being like you're all over it. And you said, well, I feel like I'm a 4. And I said, okay, well, if you want to go from a 4 to a 7 in your awareness, how do you build that muscle? What do you think you can do to build that muscle?
Take more time for yourself.
Okay.
Go for walks without the headphones like you
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
Listen to your inner thoughts,
Okay.
meditate, make time for yourself,
Yeah.
take a bath, do a spa treatment,
There you go.
any of those things, and
Okay.
just listen to your own thoughts and tune out of everything else. Turn off the
Okay.
TV.
Yeah. So I'm hearing self-care, taking time and listening to yourself, really being introspective, contemplative, really digging inside and being intentional about that versus being distracted with our phones or our TVs
Yes.
or whatever. Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Anything else?
Well, I think some of the actions, this isn't necessarily, I guess it's challenging in them in the sense, but one thing that I sometimes like is the power of yet. I
Mhm.
can't do this yet.
Yeah.
You know, take whatever, not whatever limiting belief, because this doesn't work for all limiting beliefs, but for
Mhm.
some, I can't do this yet. This is too hard for now.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But knowing that that's not forever necessarily.
Yeah. That's good.
And
Cool.
then another one that came from Atomic Habits, which I think is really powerful, is the little tiny habits. The atomic habits are so to speak, because they're so tiny that we don't think necessarily are important,
Mhm.
but they're actually it's the system, because that is what gets you there.
Mhm.
You know, it's easy to say, oh, the one little walk across the house or whatever is ridiculous. It's not going to do anything. What's the point?
Right.
But it's the next step. I mean, you've helped me with that, because at first I couldn't even stand. And
Mhm.
you got me to where I was standing for 10 seconds or 20 seconds. And then you got me, when I remember we first started working together, you wanted me to walk across the house, and I tried and I could not. And it was like, I felt
Mhm.
so stupid and so ridiculous, because it's like, I can't even do that, you know. So you finally, it got to the point that I could stand, and then I could walk across the house, and I could walk across the house again. When you did your 12-hour walk, I decided I'm going to do 12 walks across the house, you know.
That's awesome.
Which sounds ridiculous too, but
No.
Not at
it's
all.
true, you know. Also focus on the why. I mean, that always coming back to the why, I
Yeah.
think is good, because it gets us to realize that it is important, and that we can, or we should, or should's not the right word, you know that, but
Right.
anyway. So
Yeah, so I heard focus on the why, I heard start small, and I heard change the verbiage, right? You can't do it yet. So
right,
just an FYI, that's 3 of my next slides. So you're I must have already shared this presentation with you. No, I'm just kidding. I did not. So number 3 is to ask the questions, is this belief valid? And is this belief useful, right? So question them, right? And we talk a little bit about being firm and being right and loosening up and saying, is it really going to be helpful for me to think this way, right? And this isn't the end of the world, but we're just trying to say, in this capacity, with one of those limiting beliefs, which is I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too fat, I'm not an athlete per se. Is that really truly valid? And if you feel like, oh yeah, it absolutely is, well, then you can be right, but then you can't be an athlete at the same time. So number 3 is questioning them. Number 4 is formulating new beliefs and replacing it, right? And so this is where the word yet comes in for me, right? It's I'm not a good cook yet, or for now, I'm not a good cook. But and this is quite frankly something that probably half of my clients tell me is I don't like the kitchen, I'm not a good cook. And I'm not here to sell them that they're a good cook, but I listen to those words and I think about, wow, if somebody is open to the possibilities, instead of identifying themselves as not somebody that is a good cook and saying, I'm not a good cook today, but what I'm doing to make good foods in the future, I'm going to continually reframe that art, what I can do to be better. So just formulating a new belief just by making or adding a word. Again, just like I said, the why that Bev talked about, the North Star for being healthy, right? So almost everybody I talk to says, hey, Mike, I want to convert to plants, or hey, Mike, I really need to get more movement in my life, or can you work with me on getting better sleep, right? So ultimately it's because they, why do you want to pursue that? Well, I want to be more healthy, right? But it's so much more than being more healthy, because what does better health or the future of being more healthy mean to that person, right? For it could mean so many different things. So I guess my ask of you guys on this call is, you want to be intentional because you want to pursue this, your North Star, your why, your purpose. But what are some examples of what being more healthy could lead to and benefits in your life? What are some examples of that?
Well, I definitely want to be not just be healthy, but I'm interested in longevity because I have my little 2-year-old granddaughter, and our daughter is having a boy in January. And I want to see my grandkids grow up as long as I can, do it, as
Yeah.
long as I can. Our kids lost their grandparents youngish, like middle school for
Right.
my dad, and early high school for my mom, and Ed's parents as well. So, I want to be around as long as I can.
Yeah.
That is my ultimate why. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I just couldn't be more intentional. So
Yeah, very powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Well,
That's
and
another.
not just longevity, but longevity with vibrancy.
Yeah,
I mean,
True.
because we can live in a miserable state if
sure.
we let ourselves, or not let
Yeah.
ourselves. That's not a good word, but so we have to challenge that and confront that.
Yeah. Yeah, longevity and vitality, right? So they both go hand in hand, but I think that's a really good point, because if somebody is really miserable physically, emotionally, mentally in their life, they're not going to want to live another 25 years of that, right? But if they're living with vibrancy and vitality, and they're wrestling their grandkids, right? There's a whole different ballgame there, and the joy that can be experienced because of that is so incredibly powerful. Really good examples. Perfect. All right. So here's another one, and that is to be inspired. I think we know probably most of the people on this. We know Condoleezza Rice. We know this muscle man named Arnold on the left there. And then I got somebody meditating, and I got Lainey Milrath. She's amazing. She wrote a great book called The Plant-Based Journey, and her before and after pictures are ridiculous. The reason I bring this up is because as a limited belief, I could say, you know what, I'm not really good at lifting weights, or I'm not good at plant-based living, or I really struggle with meditation. But what I could do, instead of saying that or identifying with that, is I could be inspired by people who do this and who do it well, right? And I don't have to be just like them, but I'm pretty sure those individuals could share in a book, in an article, in a YouTube video, in a podcast, right? We have access to so much information of ways that they were able to succeed on that. And, Lainey Mulerath on the bottom left-hand side here, she shares her personal story in her book there on the screen. Just absolutely phenomenal. And when people come to me and say, can you give me a resource that you feel like would be helpful for me as I get kickstart on this journey, I recommend 2 books, her book and the mayor of New York's book as well. What's his book?
Healthy at Last. Yeah.
Yeah, Healthy at Last. I mean, those 2 books and the challenges that they went through in their lives, and just the simplistic message that's just so easy to understand, is incredibly inspiring, right?
What's the gal's name on the plant-based journey? It's too small on my phone. I can't see it.
Yeah, no worries. It's Lainey Mulerath, Muelrath. But if you just type the Plant-Based Journey book, she'll come right up. And you can also look at her before and after pictures. This after picture really doesn't give her service to the level of the dramatic change that went on in her body or what have you, but her simple message as it relates to the environment, as it relates to animals, as it relates to obviously health is very powerful. But the theme really on this slide, as we encounter those limiting beliefs that we all have in our lives, is how can we really work with other people that can inspire us to make progress in those various areas. Social connection. So one of the reasons we have this call, right? How can we find people that can support us through the challenges of our limiting beliefs? And probably every call I've had, somebody has shared a struggle or a limiting belief that they've had, and we all have stepped up to the plate to help and support those, right? So who can you support and who you can be supported by? I've paired up buddies before, some of which have been incredibly powerful and incredibly supportive. What friends do you have that can support you in your progress to making a goal as it relates to plant-based living, getting better sleep, movement? What family can support you? Co-workers. A number of my clients work with literally people that are helping them with accountability. And of course, I had to, of course, include coach as well, but social connections is a huge way that people can help to minimize.
And like-minded groups.
There you go.
Good
Yeah,
connection.
getting people together. Yeah, absolutely. Like-minded people together. So reframe. And this is similar to adding a word like not yet there yet, but thinking about the challenges that we have with our setbacks and what we can learn from those when people that have obstacles and don't hit the bar. And I mean, almost every coach experience that I have, hey, Mike, I had 3 goals and I did 2 of them and 1 I didn't do. And I really want to talk about the 2 that they did and why that happened or how that happened. And I also want to talk about the 1 they didn't do and why that happened and how that happened as well. What can we learn from this? How can we take this on a new perspective to help learn and grow through the process of making progress and not necessarily being perfect, right? This is not about perfection. Having that growth mindset is huge in the capacity of making behavior change stick. So this is a book that I'm about 100 pages into, but it is really interesting. And the theme about this book is what people can do to think about things and then just continually rethink about those things. So the power of knowing what you don't know. And this is one of the pages, the very last pages, I wanted to type this out because I thought it was very powerful to this.
Now,
theme
which book
itself.
is this?
This is called Think Again on your screen.
Oh, okay.
By Adam Grant. It came out about a year ago. And this is the last page of chapter, I think 2 or 3. And it says, every time we encounter new information, we have a choice. And this title in the slide is called The Power of Choice. We can attach our opinions to our identities and stand our ground in the stubbornness of preaching or prosecuting, or we can operate more like a scientist, defining ourselves as people committed to pursuit of our own personal truth, even if it means proving our own views as wrong. And we all want to be right, right? I mean, we absolutely, positively want to be right. And so about 100 years ago, this guy, he had a few automobiles he helped to make many years ago. He has a famous quote, and it's, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right, right? So really, it's your choice and it's your decision. And I know it's oversimplified, but in the theme of thinking about limited beliefs, that really kind of undermines what we're trying to accomplish as it relates to sustainable behavior change. How you think matters a great deal. And the last one, again, Beverly, I already touched base on this one, is what can we do to take small steps, right? We have people that jump in 100% right away and they are able to stick to it. But honestly, that is the exception and that is not the rule. Almost everybody starts by making little baby steps. I think probably everybody in this call to a certain capacity. Hey, let's just start taking little bitty steps, whether that's physically with our bodies or with the food. Many times I'll have a 90-day goal, which is 2 days a week. I want to be making a plant-based meal. And that's 3 months out, right? Now they can flip the switch and go plant-based 100% the next day. But in reality, a lot of times the success happens when those individuals take baby steps along the way So we have that goal of 2 days a week, they're going to make a plant-based meal, which they usually eat 3 or 4 days a week because they make extra. And then we back that up to say, well, if you want to be there in 90 days, what can you do this week to start making progress there? And I'm going to have recipe repertoire, and I'm going to have a landing spot for my recipes, and I'm going to go buy a recipe book, or Mike, why don't you send me some recipes and I'll look through those. It's just little by little. Or I'm going to go to the farmer's market and ask about vegetables. It's just those little baby steps. And as we all know, that famous quote, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We don't have to take this and jump all in making that change. So we're just about out of time, but we can do this actually pretty quickly. It's a limiting beliefs exercise. And how it goes is, I think there's either 4 or 5 of us, but we can all do this on this call. It's a limiting beliefs thinking differently for 5 minutes exercise, right? So it's 4 to 5 people. There's no judgment. We got to be quick since we only have a few minutes left, and we got to have fun. So that's the rules, okay? The first question I want you guys to answer in your head first is, what's something you would like to achieve if anything would be possible, right? So this is kind of a limiting belief that you're like, okay, well, if I didn't have this limiting belief, this would be possible. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds.
Are we supposed to be talking out loud right now? Or are we supposed to?
You are
just...
not. Yeah, just
Okay.
have it in your head because I'm getting ready to ask each of you. So what is something you would like to achieve if anything would be possible? So does anybody on the call not have something? Okay. So I can't see my screen, so I've got Bev, Claire, Shannon, Mike. Anybody else on the call? Okay, yeah, because I can't see my screen. So, okay, so Bev, what is something you would like to achieve if anything would be possible?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say, just to say it is a limiting belief, because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I would even think this or say it. But to still lose, I mean, I've lost 130 pounds. I still want to lose another 130 about. So to lose the weight, and now this is the part that is definitely, I think reality will tell me differently, but to not have the loose skin, the flabby skin, the, wrinkles, the stuff that goes with all that.
Mhm.
But okay, I mean, now I'm getting into the challenging it. Embrace it as a trophy, I suppose, would be one thing. But anyway, so that would be mine.
So I'm going to put on here,
I mean,
if it's okay with you, I'm going to put on here, proudly lose 130 pounds, and some of that other stuff kind of goes with that.
well, and also be stronger and more balanced and all that kind of stuff with that. But yes.
Okay. Claire.
I would still am looking to lose some more weight, although I've been just kind of happy where I am.
Mhm.
But I still want to lose a little bit more. And I if I had no limiting beliefs, like I don't like exercise,
Mhm.
and I don't care for competition of any kind.
Mhm.
I get, it's to get more, find more ways to get to exercise,
Mhm. Okay.
because it's
So-
not my favorite. So
what would you like to achieve if anything would be possible?
to be more physically fit, and
Okay.
Bev, I feel you on the like loose skin
Yeah,
stuff.
definitely.
Like just feel like I look my best and feel my best.
There we go. Okay. Shannon.
Just the more physically fit thing.
Okay.
Maybe not a runner, but that's always been my
definitely.
thing, is to be in that type of shape.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anybody else on the call?
You.
Yeah, no, I'm going to skip me because we're running out of time. All right. So you can only say one thing as a limiting belief that's holding you back Beverly from losing 130 pounds, Claire from getting more physically fit, and Shannon becoming more physically fit. So each of you, Bev, you go first. What's holding you back from achieving that goal? Just one thing, a limiting belief.
That I can't, that I can get closer, but that I will never really be there.
Right. So you don't feel like it's possible, right?
Right.
So the limiting belief is the goal is to lose 130 pounds. The limiting belief is you're challenged with whether you believe that that's actually possible.
Right.
Okay. So for you, Bev, what's one or two things that you can do to take away this limiting belief?
The small steps, the continued small, tiny habits or whatever, movement.
Okay, so continue to make small steps.
A little bit more, and a little bit more. 1%, that's one of the things he talks about with atomic habits.
Yeah.
We don't think, so if I've done 10,
Yeah.
11 is a whole 10%, so
Yeah.
if it's just push-ups or whatever, which will never happen probably, but anyway, so that would be one thing. And then again, continue to come down, or not come down, actually come up on proper and better nutrition.
Okay.
But in order to get there, I think I need to get to a point where I'm more independent. So it's kind of like a catch-22 sometimes. Catch-22 is a limiting belief, by the way.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so I heard from you that your limiting belief is you're really struggling with seeing if that's really truly possible. But maybe a couple things that you can do is just continually focus on making progress, that you've made substantial progress in the last 1.5 to 2 years, small steps progress, and then continue to make progress on eating well as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Claire, for you to be more physically fit, what is holding you back limiting belief wise from achieving that goal?
I guess I just want to enjoy it more. I don't, anything that feels like I'm doing it because I have to
Yeah.
is not,
Definitely.
it's not appealing to me.
Yeah. So to become physically fit, your belief is that you're just not going to enjoy it. It's just not going to be very much fun for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Great. So tell me, what's maybe one or two things that you can do to help take away this limiting belief, or at least minimize it?
Yeah, find a way to enjoy it more. Like I have tackling golf, which PS is I'm horrible. This summer and taking lessons and playing a bit.
Yeah.
And I have enjoyed that, but as Mike has pointed out to me, it's it's relationship stuff. It's a lot of things I can do on my own, but I do better if I'm doing something with other people.
Yeah.
So
So find ways, the things that you can do movement where you enjoy it, i.e. potentially with other people.
yes.
Can I ask a question on that, Mike?
Of course.
Claire, you said you don't like competition with other people, like in terms of, sports or athletics or whatever.
Correct.
What about just a little bit of competition? And I mean, maybe a little bit with yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's true.
Is that acceptable or no?
Yeah, that's more acceptable. Here's what happens. People, as in the last few years, people have gone super crazy for pickleball. And so I have friends that play pickleball and they're obsessed and they want to play all the time and they want to go really fast. And I, just because of the way they even talk about it, I don't even want to learn how to play because I don't want to be, God, I'm about to turn 67. I don't want to be like grueling for, I don't know. So it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I like to play for fun. And when I've played golf this summer, it's kind of been for fun.
Yeah.
When Ed and I did like subbed in a couples league, it's best ball. Well, clearly his ball is the best, which is fine. But at
Yeah.
least I'm getting some practice in. But if
Definitely.
I were trying to play with people that were really serious and upset if you didn't do well, I'd never do it again.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. But I could certainly challenge myself more.
Yeah.
Now, does
Sure.
UIS have like those walls where you can play against yourself, kind of? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, well, I know SIU used to have like these rooms or these walls where you could just go in and kind of do your own thing.
Yeah. You
Never
mean
mind.
okay, did you mean with golf?
Well, no,
Or-
even like with pickleball, if you wanted to play it, just wanted to play it against your own self, like
Oh yeah, just
do it
to
with
learn how to do it. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it sounds like you really want to enjoy it. It's not about the competition for you. In fact, that sounds like it kind of turns you off. That's really gets people charged up, but other people like Grace Ann's very much like that. Me and my daughter are very competitive and we just love competition. My wife doesn't like to play games at all, right? So it's just for that individual, it makes the most sense for them. But
right.
for you, as it relates to achieving the goal of being more physically fit, you're looking just for having fun, enjoying the movement, potentially having social connections along the way.
Yes.
Good. Wonderful. Shannon, you want to be more physically fit. What is holding you back from achieving this goal?
I was doing really well, and then, injuries derailed me.
Uh-huh.
So I dislike the comfort or
Sure.
discomfort that goes along with the exercise.
Sure.
And that really completely derailed me. And then now I can't I don't feel like I have the motivation to do it.
Sure.
And then just being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I have to push past the discomfort.
Right. So you have two there that I heard. I heard number one, you believe the only way you can become physically fit is you're actually going to experience pain in the process.
Right.
And what was the other one? You said it was the pain and it was
Motivation, I guess.
yeah, it was
Or that
motivation.
I
And
don't have
you really
motivation.
just are not motivated to do it for that reason. So there's two
Right.
limiting beliefs there. So which one of those do we want to look at potentially? Do we want to do the motivation or do we want to do the pain limiting belief?
The motivation.
Okay.
I can push through the discomfort part.
Okay. Yeah. So right now you're not motivated for lots of reasons, right? But one of those is it freaking hurts when you try
Yeah.
to become more physically fit. So what do you think is maybe one or two things that you can do to help you with the limiting belief of I'm not motivated?
Just to set small goals and small steps and accomplish them every day and keep increasing, those steps.
Okay.
And get right back up on the horse.
Okay.
I've fallen off pretty hard, so I need
Sure.
to get back on there.
Yeah, as a possibility. So I love it. That's, and all of you have different ways of potentially achieving or overcoming that limited belief. And this isn't, again, the end all and be all, but the whole reason why the words thinking differently are in yellow here is to help you to just, again, I struggle with this as well because I'm in this funk of this is who I am and this is what I do, et cetera. But if we just think a little bit differently by looking at one of the 10 different things, hey, what we can do to, this is what I want to do. This is what's holding me back based on my limiting belief. And maybe here's one thing that I can do differently to move forward, right? So for your example, Shannon, it was just make some real small baby steps, and accomplishing those things can potentially build your confidence and even your motivation in that process.
Can I say something for Shannon too, maybe?
Of course.
Sure.
I don't know if this is helpful to you or not. To me, it is. For me, I have to every single day, actually often throughout the day, read bits and pieces of different motivational things or success stories or
Yes.
overcoming obstacles, because it just I have to keep feeding my mind that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's too easy to just say forget it. You know what I mean?
Of course.
For me.
Yeah, that's very good point. Definitely. So,
Whether it be podcasts, whether it be video clips,
Yes.
or whatever. I
yeah,
mean,
that's great. So any insights when going through that process of identifying what your goal is or one of your goals, identifying the limiting belief that's preventing you from accomplishing that goal, and then maybe thinking about one or two things that you can do to try to overcome that limiting belief. Any insights come to mind?
No, just that I have to work on doing that.
Mhm.
I have to take action.
Sure.
It will never happen if I don't take action.
Yeah. Very cool.
now, do you give yourself the message that you want to?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's
And
good.
and I always did, like you said, I always would listen to podcast every day, and I would go for my walks and everything. And I've, been just off. I haven't been listening to podcasts. I haven't been, reading any plant-based books for months. I've done none of that.
Mhm.
You've put some good things, I know, on WLS on occasion.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I just got derailed with an injury, I think,
Yeah.
and I just kind of threw my hands up and said, "Oh, just forget it."
Yeah.
So, but I did try to get back on track. I bought the plant-based woman warrior book
Nice.
and that was very inspirational.
That's so
Um,
awesome.
and got me, trying to get back out there again.
Yeah. Well, good for you. And just know that on this call, you've got a lot of people that care about you, and you can always reach out for help and support anytime, for sure. For me, I don't want to speak for everybody, but anytime. So just a phone call away. But thank you so much, In, for your vulnerability and your honesty in this communication. And second to last slide I have is really, this is limiting beliefs is something we all have. It's very normal. It's very natural. Again, these are things that we didn't necessarily plan on. It's the way we were raised, the experiences that we've had that then give us conviction to say, this is what my truth is. And there are other ways, right? There are other ways and things that we can do to overcome them. So we went a little long, and I apologize for that, but I just so appreciate you guys sharing your own personal challenges and goals and aspirations that you have, and hope this was helpful for you guys as well. Any other final comments before we close it out?
Can I just have one more minute, maybe?
Sure.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry. This is one little thing that I've written that's just kind of goofy, but anyway, it's kind of along the line of somebody said it couldn't be done. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably mostly right, but you can move toward achieving whatever it is by having the dream in sight. It won't be today or even tomorrow, but I guarantee there won't be sorrow. If you start the steps, no matter how small, and keep on going, even when you fall, there will be a day when you can look back and say, that wasn't so hard after all.
Wow, that was
That's
really good.
I just thought that was kind of pertinent. I mean, kind of applicable for right
That
now.
was awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, very nice, Bev.
Good stuff. All right, guys, we're going to close it out. Thank you so much for your time today. We'll
Thanks,
talk to you
everybody.
soon.
Thanks, Mike.
You bet. You take care, guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.